Some of the deepest wounds in humanity are not created by monsters. They are created by people that suffered. A child grows up in fear, rejection, neglect, or violence, only because they weren't sheltered by the imperfect reality that hurts. Instead, the hurt tries to expose that inevitable struggle. This willingness is seen as neglect. Their brain adapted to survive, not to thrive, and see that life will be no different. They become defensive, distrustful, angry, emotionally distant. They don't choose these patterns, they inherit them, and since life gives, then they prepare the young for the reality that they didn't choose. Life continues, only cause the strong are nothing but strong. But as technology surpasses the ability for people to work their way out of struggle, those survival behaviors eventually hurt other people, since the younger generations labeled it as unnecessary. Relationships do inevitably fail as a result, even when they meant well. How do I know? They fed you while you were vulnerable. So, although families break apart and friendships end, sometimes the very source of pain they once represented becomes perfectly obvious. Most of the time, they were only trying to give you the vaccine for the unfairness, by giving you a hard time without crippling you. This is one of the cruelest realities of psychology. Many people must first experience the consequences of their own unresolved trauma before they recognize it exists. Healing often begins only after enough suffering has accumulated that continuing the same way becomes unbearable. Children that become chess masters win over lifelong masters. Is it no wonder our nature seems to want to teach without loss? Only enough for the future, the youth, to master survival. That doesn't excuse harmful behavior. People remain responsible for the choices they make. But understanding where those choices came from can explain why cycles of abuse repeat across generations. Psychologists call this intergenerational trauma. The inanimate world gives you trauma, like when you stub your toe. Not personal at all, yet you remember it every time you walk barefoot. Experiences during childhood shape how the brain interprets danger, trust, love, and conflict. Unless those patterns are recognized, they are often passed to partners, friends, and children, if education doesn't overwhelm poverty. Education is key. The tragedy is that many of the kindest, wisest, and most compassionate people were once versions of themselves they deeply regret. Their greatest strength was built from confronting their greatest blindness. Some people spend decades carrying pain they never asked for. Some never escape it. Others eventually stop the cycle. They apologize. They seek therapy. They learn emotional regulation. They become the safe adult they never had, yet the adult they got sometimes hold back a history that is even worse. Perhaps maturity is not the absence of mistakes. You cannot live long without realizing that life will traumatize you. Finally seeing the invisible wounds that have been guiding your life all along and deciding they end with you, because we are about compassion, earning the quality we hope to gain. We don't acknowledge the logic, we only respect the emotion that speaks clearly of that logic. The greatest inheritance you can leave your children may not be money, success, or status. It may simply be a family where trauma is no longer passed from one generation to the next, if only they see that the earliest trauma speaks deep without cutting deep. Humans are genius personified. Sometimes that genius is tripped up, and they spend their genius preparing for the unfairness. If you were to learn anything worthwhile from this video is the following. Understanding the older folks probably already suffered. Don't get caught up in the same struggle. Be patient, be forgiving, be understanding, as you go to school to rise above the fog of painful memories.